Then the second question is, what have I given to them? And the third question is, what troubles and difficulties have I caused that person? To reflect on ourselves instead of seeing what they've done wrong to us, we should focus on perhaps there are things that we've done to them that we're not even fully aware of. So the questions kind of provide the foundation for reflecting on our relationship with the people we love, and our relationship with the people we see, with our neighbors, with our teachers, with our siblings, with our children, or our partners. And we can reflect on these relationships, even when it comes to our pets or things like our material things like our car or the community as a whole, or driving in traffic, or all these different things. We can reflect on certain time periods. Perhaps we want to look at the past 24 hours or the past week or the past month or the past year or the past whatever. But in each case, we want to really focus on finding a more realistic view of our conduct and understand that there is a give and take in everything. There's a give and take in our relationships. There's a give and take in our actions in the world, and what has occurred by my actions. So the questions themselves seem rather simple, but we want to go into the depths of them. We want to dig in and find that insight and the realization that can come as we practice digging deep and sitting in self-reflection, not in a place from a intellectual standpoint, but from a heartfelt standpoint. How do I feel about this when I think about this person and how I blame them for this thing, but this is what I did to them? And it's not about a getting even, or it's just coming into the reality. And our challenge is to see the reality of life as it is. And that's a big piece of our practice in mindfulness, is allowing ourselves to come into this space of being aware of what's going on, and then accepting what's going on. And then from those lessons, we can determine what we're going to do with that experience. So there's a whole lot of complexity to it, but the reality of it is we overcomplicate things that are so simple. It's simple. If we get to the true depths of our inquiries and allow our investigation to go into that space of what's going on in my life now. So everybody with me? I assume so.
Yes, I got a quick question.
Mhm.
Is that also, I mean, you have to ask those questions to yourself, but just in conjunction with asking, the taking charge in action upon those thoughts, right? It's almost it's in relation to radical forgiveness. You have to forgive these people to be able to release and feel like, no, even if you don't have to go and see that person, you don't know exactly what happened in between those, the two people, but just like, when your thoughts, with your intention, forgiving the person or forgiving yourself for not being there for the person, let's say,
Exactly.
you
So
know, go ahead.
that's one instance where we can focus on the forgiveness piece. The other piece might be on the acceptance piece, when we're struggling in a relationship with somebody and we're only focusing on the things that they're doing wrong. And a lot of relationships get into that space where it's very contentious, or we're walking on the edge of stress or suffering in something else, and we see that partner that we love only for the things that they're doing wrong. Or society as a whole, we're only focused on what's going wrong in the world instead of focusing on what's right. So it's all about changing that perspective, and we can use it for radical forgiveness or radical acceptance or authentic love or mindful communication. All of that allows us to have the foundation from which we can move forward with intention and purpose. But awareness is key, and that's why these questions are so useful, because they might open up a new awareness that might broaden our perspective, right? Does that make sense? So let's start with that first question. The first question is, what have I received from this person? So when we examine our relationship with another person, we should begin to look at what we've received, not what they've done to us or what's missing in our relationship. And we can start with little things. Like, you think about your partner. They made me a cup of coffee this morning. They washed the breakfast dishes. They did the laundry so that I have clean clothes to wear today. Those simple things that have clear descriptions in the reality of my life today. And when we focus on those little things and we start adding them up and seeing, when I reach into my drawer and I see that there's a tube of toothpaste there, and I know I didn't buy it, so that person that I love bought it for me so that I have it there to brush my teeth. Those simple things that we take for granted allow us to really connect with our life in where we are in this moment, so we can see that this person, no matter what my attitude towards them is, or what conflict we might be having in the moment, is there for me and supports me. And so that person's attitude or motivation doesn't change the fact that I benefited from their effort. I benefited from them supporting me in some way. So, um, so many times we take so many things for granted. We kind of hurry through our day, or we give little attention to those little things that we should be focused on. But are all those things really that little? When we add them up, there's a lot. They only seem little because we take them for granted, or because our attention is somewhere else. But if I reached in that drawer and there wasn't a tube of toothpaste, all of a sudden it would be a bigger thing than it was. Or if I didn't have any clean clothes to go to work today, I'd be like, okay, why didn't you do my laundry today? Right? And pushing that blame and going into that space. So our attention's elsewhere until it affects us in a negative way. But it's like when you turn on the shower and there's no hot water, that's a big deal. But when you turn on the shower and there's hot water there, it's not that big a deal. You take it for granted that you turn on the faucet and there's going to be water, right? Or if you, but if you woke up in the morning and you're like me and you wear glasses and you can't find your glasses, that's a big deal. But when I reach for my glasses in the morning and they're there, it's not a big deal. It's expected, right? And it's the same thing we do in our relationships. It's expected. It's expected that the person who does the laundry in my house is going to do the laundry, or does the dishes, or cooks the dinner, or whatever it is. Those expectations are really the things that trip us up. So as we work on that first question, what has this person done for me? Our list should focus on what we've received from that person and be grounded in the simple reality of how they support us and care for us. Instead of focusing on what they do wrong, we focus on what they do for us. And when you start, if you take that worksheet and you start working on that first question, you'll start to be surprised at how long that list can be. And as you dig deeper into it, you start to feel a deeper sense of gratitude and appreciation, because you start to stimulate that. So it's where we get out of our head and start to sink into our heart, and it opens up to the grace that we have deep in our heart for the support that we have in our life. And we start to realize how much support we have in our life. But without that that conscious shift of our intention, of our attention, then we start moving in the way that we think that the world owes us, right? Or this person owes me something because I did this for them, without realizing what they've done for me. And it leaves us in that place of suffering or self-pity or blame, right? We're pointing fingers. So when we take a few minutes and we start thinking about something as simple as, what has this person done for me in the past 24 hours? And I start making the list and checking it twice, we start to see that it's quite a list. It can be quite a list, all those things that we just take for granted. And that simple daily reflection is what Naikan is, reflecting. And it's not limited to our loving relationships or one person. It can be opened up and used in so many different ways. We can reflect on perhaps somebody we're struggling with from our past, right? Maybe somebody who hurt us in our past that we were in a relationship with, or maybe it's a parent who we've been stuck in that self of blame. But we can reflect on it. And I'm not saying it's truly going to move you into a place of forgiveness or even acceptance, but when you start digging into it, it opens you up to at least start to explore the possibilities that even amongst all that struggling and all the suffering that was caused by that person, there was some support. There was some love. Maybe. I'm not here to answer that question, but I'm just here to challenge us to move into that space. And when we open ourselves up to examine these relationships even deeper, and we start to be specific and dig deep, it changes everything. It moves us into that space of trying to find what's right, right? Um, Exploring ourselves in that way. So the second question is, what have I given to this person? It's almost like the way it's described by the person who created Nikon. He was a businessman, and in that business, every month he would send out statements to the customers that um, the people that owed him money, and then he would send out payments to people that he owed money to. Right, so there's this give and take. the statements of the products that were sent and the amount of money received, right? That's how you run a business. In a similar way, it's like, okay, we can see this as this account that we have of give and take. What are we receiving and what are we putting out? That energetic exchange, right? So it can be so useful to see this kind of as a life reconciliation when it comes to our relationships. When I've examined in detail what I've been given or what I've received, then I can start to determine a bit of a balance, right? It's not everything about what I do for you, you owe me something in return, but we can start comparing our giving as credits, I'm giving and giving, and what I'm taking as debts in relationship to the single person or to the relationship we have with the world, right? And we can examine a time, a specific day or a decade, and through the process, we can start to open up a deeper relationship of, does this person owe me or do I owe this person? Does the world owe me or do I owe this person? But most people, I shouldn't generalize. A lot of people go through their life thinking that they're owed something from the world. The world owes them because of all the struggles they've been through in the past. I've been through all these things, so the world owes me now. Or we get into that space where we're working in a job and you don't get a raise, and you get in that space, well, why didn't I get that raise? Or we get in our car and we say, why is there so much traffic? Or why is there road construction today when I'm in a hurry? Or how come I don't get more appreciation from my spouse or my kids or my whatever, right? And then what happens? We start to put off this negative energy. Sometimes it builds into a bit of resentment. When they don't fulfill our expectations, we live in that space where this person owes me something, right? When we don't feel that people are supporting us, we feel that there's a true need and we suffer. We take things for granted because we see something bigger, but we don't realize that beneath the surface, those expectations are overblown. When people do support us, we take those things for granted because we're only focused on what that person owes us. We live as if we're entitled to the support of that person instead of realizing how much support we get. But in this practice, as we reflect on our life, we begin to see the reality of our life. Ask yourself, as you're sitting here, what's more appropriate? Is it more appropriate to go through life with the mission of collecting what's owed to us, or to go through life giving, repaying, serving? So suppose I begin to realize how supported I am in my life. How suppose if I sat day after day looking at everybody I encounter as somebody who's supporting me in some way, because that's what our community is all about. I can't do things, and I talk about it often. I'm not an electrician. I'm not a mechanic. I can't change the oil in my car. I don't do so many things, and there's a community around me to support me to do that. I don't put the groceries on the grocery shelf, but I expect they're going to be there when I walk into the store, right? I don't put the gas in the tank at the gas station, but when I pull out the nozzle, I want there to be gas to fill up my car, right? That support is there, but we take it for granted. And we think that we're owed this for some reason. So when we get into that space where we begin to realize how supported we are in so many ways, wouldn't it lead me into that place to see society and the community as a whole as needing my support in return? What do I have to offer the community? What can I give? It kindles that natural desire to give and to be of service to others, and it instills a greater sense of gratitude and maybe even a bit of realistic humility. That I've been in that space of contentiousness, of blame, of anger and frustration, of all the things that I think were done to me, instead of focusing on all the things that were given to me. It's such a shift in our focus, and it takes away that angst and that stuff. So just think about all those little things. Somebody sends you a text message to say, how are you today? Or picks up the phone like old school and actually calls you and says, what's going on? Or somebody says good morning to you or holds the door open for you. All those little things that we take for granted each and every day. What if we truly, truly embrace this is somebody giving something to me? This is somebody giving something to me. So when we start thinking about that second question, is what have I given this person? today. And you start listing it. Just as you listed all the things that they've given you, start listing all the things that you've given them. But at the same time, start thinking about the things that you perhaps could have given them. Perhaps instead of taking it for granted, oh, thank you for having that tube of toothpaste in the drawer for me today. Or thank you for washing the dishes that were there for breakfast. Or I'm so glad that when I went in my drawer, I had this sweatshirt because it's kind of cold here in Florida today. And I know I had to dig it out from the bottom of the drawer, but it was there, right? Thank you. What a switch that would be. So when we start keeping that list on the second question, be concrete and specific and try to don't do generalizations like I was helpful or I was very supportive. Be specific. How were you helpful? What did you actually do? And is it something that was truly needed or was it something that you went above and beyond? So once you go through those first couple of questions, you kind of have an idea of the give and take of that relationship. Then we should ask ourselves to look deeper. If you're starting to keep those lists on those first two questions, look at those lists and make sure you've been consistent. And what have you given in return? Again, the list can get super specific. Like this person gave me a smile. This person said thank you. Those little things that add up to so much support. Then it's, have you been accurate? Or did you leave out the fact that this person just cooked you dinner, right? Or this person just walked the dog, or whatever it is. When we take a few minutes and focus on what it is, then we start to see more and more. And then the final question is the one that perhaps is the most difficult. What troubles or difficulties have I caused this person? What troubles or difficulties? We're really good at knowing the inconveniences or difficulties that other people have given us. Perhaps somebody cuts us off in traffic, or maybe the person in front of us doesn't hold the door for us and the door closes in our face. But when we're the source of the trouble or the inconvenience, we don't notice it at all. Or we think it was a mistake, or it was something I overlooked, or I didn't mean it, right? But when we reflect and we go deep into that, then we should start to see there's more to it than perhaps it wasn't just an accident. Instead of making an excuse like, I didn't mean to do it. Well, you didn't mean to do it because you weren't present or you weren't mindful. So that's just an excuse. We don't want to just dismiss these things as no big deal. But the question's truly important. When we reflect on ourselves, we should spend at least 50 to 60% of our time thinking about perhaps what have I done that may have caused trouble, or what have I haven't done that didn't support that person in some way. And if we're not willing to accept and see the events that perhaps have caused somebody else's suffering, then we can't truly allow ourselves to move through our life with grace and purpose. So ask yourself often, did I criticize somebody? Did I make fun of somebody? Did I leave the dishes in the sink for somebody else to wash? Did I have this expectation that somebody was going to respond to a phone call or an email faster and I got angry? Because we don't even just think about the actions, we think about the energy that we're holding inside when we have an expectation that somebody should have responded to me in the expected time that I expected them to respond to me. And because they didn't respond to me, I put out the negative energy. Now, in our practice, we know if you put out negative energy, the person's going to receive it, right? It's all about the intention. Or did I not honor that person's boundaries? Or did I show up late for an appointment? Or did I overspeak when that person was trying to explain something to me? All those little things add up to things that perhaps we could be better at. So however you go about, if you take on this challenge of listening those questions, and the reason I'm teaching that today is I think it's a great thing for us to use with our clients to help them dig deeper into these practices. And it can help move them to a space of reflection. So if you've gone through the first three questions and you've listed out your list, then we need to reflect on the reflections to dig deep into them and make sure, what can we learn from this? It's not just it shouldn't just be a busyness. It shouldn't be something we give our clients or give ourselves to keep ourselves busy and say, I did this, here's my paper, now grade me, right? No, we should take that list and we should reflect on it. What are we aware of? And how can I change? How can I do things differently? What are the things that I've been taking for granted in my life that I shouldn't take for granted anymore? And this type of daily reflection can be so empowering. It can be so intentional. It can be one of the most profound changes we can embrace in our life because it allows us to see the reality of how we've been taking things for granted or how we're putting out so much negative energy by thinking somebody's going to do something because it's my expectation, even though they might have not have any idea that that's what your expectation is. It allows us to truly see ourselves, to see the things that push our buttons, to see the things that make us feel a certain way, and those feelings may not be based in any other reality except my expectation of how I think things should be, instead of the reality of how things are. Because if I expect my spouse to do something and they don't do it, maybe there's a reason they didn't do it. Maybe there's something going on in their life that I don't know about, but I'm not taking the time to explore it, right? I took it for granted that they should be there for me, but am I there for them? I don't know. But this is the thing that it's really going to guide us to, is to ask these questions. So when we start with the truth, when we get down into the depths of the truth and the reality of how our life is, then what are we doing? We're nurturing those seeds of intention. We're starting to warm and water the soil of intentional living. So that's basic practice of Naikan in and of itself. So how do we take that and shift it into the gratitude that this whole coaching corner was supposed to be about? Well, that in and of itself is going to move us into a space of gratitude. So when we shift the practice of Naikan to a gratitude exercise, and I posted on the I wanted to say portal, but on the Facebook page, a printout that I'm calling a gratitude exercise. And the gratitude exercise is kind of based on that whole practice of self-reflection. And this self-reflection comes into the space of, what are the things I'm taking for granted? So I want you to close your eyes for a minute and just think about this. Just close your eyes and breathe in for a moment. And I want you to just imagine you're on a boat. And you're on that boat and there's an accident. And you're in this icy, rough sea. And you're trying to keep your head above the water. And it gets more and more difficult because the waves keep pulling us under. But imagine just before you sink beneath the surface, a lifeboat appears next to you. And this older woman helps you into the boat. What would your attitude be towards that woman? How would you feel about her? What would you say to her? What would you do for her when you got back to shore? Do you think you could ever repay her for saving your life? And just reflect on that for a minute and see the reality of it. How you would feel truly indebted to this person. How there would be such a desire for you to give her something back, right? But reflect on this now. Reflect on the fact that your life is being saved each and every moment with every breath that you take. You might not have noticed it, but your breath flows 10, 20, 30 times in a minute, right? And every time you breathe in, your life is being saved. Because without that breath, you wouldn't be alive. So now take in a nice deep breath and feel it fill your lungs and feel what your body takes in to survive. And then let it out. And recognize right there, you were just saved. Now think about what your attitude is towards the air. How do you feel about that air? And can you ever do enough to repay the air for saving your life time and time again? We take it for granted, but every time we breathe, it saves our life. Think about this. Have you ever held your breath underwater? Maybe you were trying to swim across the whole pool. And as you reach the other side of the pool, you're desperate for air. And when you come up, you take in a nice deep breath because the air was denied to you for a little bit. When you come up, you gasp for air and take a deep breath in and you drink it in. And how does it feel when you fill your lungs and have that air rushing into you? As you breathe, your whole body relaxes as the oxygen fills every cell. But what if you came up and there was no air there? How long would you last? Not long. The thing is, that's how we move through our day. We take something that our life depends on, like air, for granted. If you think about how we move through our day, whether we were kind or selfish that day, whether I spoke from a place of anger or a place of love, or whether I treated others with respect or cruelty, the air is there no matter. No matter what actions I take in my life, the air is there to support me. I depend on it, and it's always there for me. And it dependability of that air rushes into my lungs, and I have the faith and the trust that it's always going to be there. But when's the last time you said thank you? Thank you for that breath, or thank you for the air. Now open your eyes. We take it for granted, right? Well, if you think about this, think about the fact that today, not only did the air save my life, but the water on this planet saved my life. Our water deserves recognition, right? Most of my body consists of water. We're consistently replenishing our body with water, although it might show up in different forms, but it's still a liquid that fills us, right? What about your heart? That heart that's constantly beating? My life is saved by my heart. With every beat of my heart, even when I'm sleeping, my heart keeps beating. And my lungs? And every organ in my body? Everything working together in harmony to sustain my life? All of those parts of me. As I breathe and I speak and I eat and I walk and I see, and the sun rises and the night comes from the day and the day from the night. Look, last night I slept really well. Even though I didn't put any effort into it, I had a good night's sleep. But when I concentrate on trying to fall asleep, what happens? I don't have a good night's sleep. The sleep just happened because I didn't try to force it. I just let it sleep. So when's the last time you thanked the water? When's the last time you thanked your heart, or you thanked your lungs, or your organs? When's the last time you woke up in the morning and said, thank you, sleep? I don't think I've done that one. I'm going to start though. One thing that can humble us each and every day is if we focus on the little things, to realize that perhaps something sacrificed its life as I'm eating it so that I can live. Perhaps it was a plant or a seed or an animal, wheat or grass or whatever. Something traveled all those miles so that I could live. I didn't grow or harvest or transport. I didn't do anything about it except buy it in the store, cook it, and eat it. Or maybe I went to the restaurant and paid somebody to create it for me and ate it. When's the last time I said thank you for the food? What about the words that we speak, or the knowledge that we have, or the lessons that we've learned, or the teachers that we've met, or the people who help us every day? What about those moments of silence when we can truly reflect on where we are and who we are and what we're going to do next? So many times as a teacher of mindfulness, I ask my clients to think about that. Think about those moments of silence and how you feel in those moments of silence, and how so many people feel uncomfortable. And as the silence gets longer and longer, a lot of people get more and more uncomfortable. I remember when I was a teenager, my dad always used to pick on me because he wanted me to keep engaging in conversation with him. Like if we were driving in a car somewhere and I didn't have anything to say, so I would be uncomfortable because I had this expectation that he was expecting me to say something that I didn't really want to talk about. I'm kind of one of those people, if I don't have anything, if it's not important, Why say it, right? Why? I'm not a big small talk kind of person. That actually led me into a place where I appreciate silence, and I appreciate people who appreciate silence because there's a whole lot there, right? I kind of feel those people who are uncomfortable with silence really aren't good at self-reflection, which is a whole nother story anyway. But what are the things that are triggering us and the things that are making us turning us to that place of judgment, as I just did? I judged my dad because I felt he needed me to fill the air with space, but I judged him. Why? It's not what we should do. So, when we take a moment and start to reflect on all the things that we have in our life, of course, you're going to say you're grateful for those things. But to truly pause and do it is different than just saying it, than just doing the lip service. So, if you feel brave enough, I want you to start practicing this week. I want you to think about the first thing. What did I receive from others? What did I receive from others? And don't just focus on the big things. Think about the little things. Then the second question is, what did I give to others? What did I give? And where did that giving come from? And then the last question is, what troubles or difficulties did I cause? And reflect on that. And from those things, we're not moving into that and not asking that question to make ourselves feel bad or to make ourselves suffer, but we're doing it so that we can learn, so that we can change. We're in this constant state of transformation. And the only way we can truly transform ourselves from a place of the heart is to dig deep. Because if we have the expectation of what we should be doing, sometimes that leads us in the wrong space, but our heart will never lead us in that wrong space. So as you're thinking about those three questions, what did I receive from others? What did I give to others? And what troubles or difficulties did I cause? Try to be specific. Again, if you get a phone call from somebody and they left a voicemail, but you let it go to voicemail because you didn't want to talk to that person, does that go on your difficult list? Did you cause that person difficulty because you chose not to answer their call when they chose to call you for some reason or another? Wouldn't that go on your difficult list? I caused difficulty for this person who was reaching out to me and I didn't feel like talking to them. That's me. Instead of being in that space, why is this person bothering me right now? How many times do we do that? It's different. It's a shift. Or if our spouse made us a cup of coffee, that means it goes on our received list, right? They made me a cup of coffee. Did I say thank you? And if I didn't say thank you, that would go on my difficulty list. See how that works? It could be a long I almost said long ass list, but it could be quite the list, right? Uh, but try not to leave out the little things because it's the little things that make a difference when you're practicing something like equanimity. When you truly want to be that boulder in the middle of the stream and allow life to really flow around you, you have to be grounded in the truth of who you are, the good, the bad, and the in between. And I don't even like to call things bad because even the things we do unintentionally that might cause somebody else to suffer are opportunities. And we should be grateful for those opportunities. But if we don't learn from them, then what is it? Nothing. So don't leave out the little things because you know what? When you're focusing on gratitude, there are no little things. It's the little things that matter. And this, in and of itself, as you go through all of the lessons that you guys learn, all the lessons that we learn in mindfulness, from awareness to acceptance to gratitude to forgiveness to all that stuff, one of the final lessons we focus on is oneness and connectivity. And this practice shows you that we are a community. And I don't care if you're in England or in California or in Nebraska or in Costa Rica or wherever you are, it's a community. And that's what gives us that place of, I'm part of this community. And when we start focusing on all that thing, then all of a sudden we start to see the world doesn't really owe me anything. I owe the world for every breath that I take, for every sip of water that I take, for every song that I hear, for every face that I see, for every time I turn on a light switch. So what am I doing to be of service? And to be of service is the best thing we can do. When you find that passion for what it is that you can share with the world, when you start sharing it, you're walking your path of truth. You're giving back to the universe. What is it? Why am I here? What was I created for? And when you start finding the things that make you feel good here, that's what you're created for, to share that and share that and share that. It's quite the practice, and it can be transformational. It is transformational, and I really love sharing it with those clients who are ready for it. And trust me, not all clients are ready for it, because it's a deep practice. It's not just simply keeping a gratitude journal. It's the next thing. It's like the gratitude journal on steroids. Turn it up. So, how's that? Any questions on all that stuff? Comments?
Hey, I'm back in the
Hello.
room.
I see you.
Hi, everyone. Bill, thank you so much for that invitation to go deeper with our practices of gratitude. A couple of things struck me when you were sharing it, reminded me very much around, because I think what's important in gratitude is to not spiritually bypass it, right? I think you probably spoke on this at the beginning around when we're like, yeah, practice gratitude and I'm grateful for this, and it's just words, right? It's almost an ego-based practice, I think, that's happening in our modern world. It's cool to be grateful for this, that, and the other, and we can get trendy with it. But actually, I think what this practice is doing is it's giving us an invitation to actually go into our shadows. And it takes me always to my favorite subject of communication and communication with self, and the responsibility that we have as emotional beings to ensure that how we're showing up in the world is adding, a higher vibration and not sucking it out. I felt quite emotional when you spoke of the air, because of course we've had a lot of talk recently around global warming and what we're all doing as beings on this planet, and I think that would be such a powerful workshop to actually get everywhere that we can on what would you do right now if you couldn't take that breath, and actually that is a real threat. To think that Delhi, for instance, in India, are going into lockdown potentially through air pollution, not because of COVID, but through air pollution right now. So this is a real problem for us. And then it led me to that kind of thought around that karmic view, right? And how so often we can, the boomerang, well, I did this, so where's my turn now, and ensuring, that's how I try and keep alignment. We get pushed and pulled and triggered all the time. We all know that karmic line of, if I stay true to myself, if I stay accountable for how I'm showing up, instead of thinking of this give and take, this karmic line that we stay close to, feels good. But the one thing that I did have like I'm not sure about that was when you said about the call. And I think that that's an interesting one, isn't it? Like, do we take the call? Are we causing harm to someone by not taking the call? And that for me also took me into my place of boundaries as well. And so I think there's always self-inquiry there. Maybe I'm not in the place to hold space for this person right now. And so I'm doing more harm by robotically going, yeah, sure, and I'm not actually able to listen to somebody. So I think this is clearly, like you said, gratitude on steroids, clearly an area that we can really dive into or go deep to look at self and how we ripple out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you as always. And hello, beautiful people.
Hello, beautiful. And I think that thing about the phone call is what's the intention? Why are you choosing not to pick up that phone? And if you have good reason, as you just said, I'm not in a place where I can hold space for this person right now. Well, that's a good thing, I think, because you wouldn't be able to give them your full attention or your full energy. So then that would be on the good list, because I didn't make that person waste their time So it's not saying that not picking up the call is a bad thing. It's just, would it go on your difficult list or would it go on your gratitude list, right? On the giving list, right? So only you can determine that at the time, but you have to be honest with yourself. And you're not just making an excuse because you were too busy watching Netflix and you didn't want to pick up the phone. That's a little different than being in a space of your own energetic imbalance, right? Honesty is the key. Honest with yourself. In the whole practice of, I think that we're focusing on mindfulness, and in something like this, and we're using these tools with our clients in whatever way we can, whether it's a classroom or an individual coaching session, we're getting back to when people start digging deep in self-reflection and then they can do something with that, it's self-empowerment. It moves them out of that space of expecting the world to be the way it is and then suffering because it's not, or expecting that person to give you everything you need to be happy or to feel love or whatever it is. You come back into the truth and say, the only person that can truly fulfill me is me. Now, there are people that come into our life that lift that fulfillment up and make us feel even more complete, but that doesn't mean we're not whole and complete without those people, right? If we get into that space, and it truly is a practice of self-empowerment. As coaches, again, I don't have the answers for what my clients want. My job is to empower them to find the answers within themselves. That's the truth. And this kind of practice, when guided at the right time, meeting our clients where they are, and I could tell you the first couple of sessions, this might be too deep for a client, but those who've been working with us for a while and they're stuck in that place of blame or shame or doubt or lack can really go into that place of saying, let's start filling this cup and look at the good and the bad and the in-between. And what do I have to give? And what am I receiving? And when people who are in that space of loneliness or sense of betrayal or sense of need, and when they start adding up all the support that they've had in their life or all the support that they have each and every day, maybe it starts lifting them out of that place of loneliness and saying, look, there are people around me that support me. Or look, the world does support me in more ways than I'm seeing on the news or yeah. So anybody else got something?
It's particularly difficult when you deal with people that are HIV positive.
Sure. And in any
Because
other case of suffering, and whether it's cancer or for sure. Yeah.
what do you tell people? To be grateful that they have HIV?
No,
So I have to mix psychology, coaching, and meditation all together.
right.
And sometimes it's a challenge. And I go visit these people one-on-one. And there are times that when they're offering me the money at the end, I give it back to them and say, this is my gift back to you. So there's always something to be grateful for. And I try and turn it around from a focus of my illness to I'm here, I'm breathing, I can drink water, my medication's keeping the HIV at bay. And even though people reject me because I'm positive, people reject me because they don't want to have to deal with me if I get sick, there are still people in the world that are there for you. So I always try and twist it from a place of negativity to a place of radical acceptance. And that's the one thing that I remember when I was taking my classes with you, that really hit me. You don't have to like it, but you have to accept it because that's the way it is. That is one of the lessons when we were at the original meditation school, that I was sitting on that futon. And when you said that, it hit me like a thunderbolt. You must radically accept where you are. And that's what I'm teaching my clients. You don't have to like it. You have to accept it. But that doesn't mean you can't make it better. That doesn't mean you can't go to a place of gratitude from radically accepting the way it is. And I'm happy to say that I've helped so many clients lift themselves up to a place where they can say, I'm grateful I'm in South Florida because I don't have to deal with the cold. I'm grateful that I can work out at the gym. I'm grateful that I have food. And yes, I still have HIV, but I'm grateful for all these other things. So I twist it from a place of negativity to a place of positivity. And that radical acceptance for me has been the beginning point. And I want to thank you personally for giving me that gift. I'm grateful for you for specifically doing that for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's nobody ever said this stuff was easy, right? And when you work in these environments, and think about hospice care. How can you go into a hospice center and focus on something like this with somebody who's looking at the end of their life? It's like, okay, you have to radically accept the reality of where you are and then determine, what am I going to do with that? Maybe I have a week left. Well, don't I want to make the most of that week and reach out to the people in my life that I love, or people I need to ask for forgiveness, or whatever it is you need to do to find that opportunity, or go walk outside and look at the sky one last time, or whatever it is. It's not easy, but it's worth it, and it's necessary, right? It's all good stuff, right? All right. Anybody else?
I can always talk.
Of course you can. Oh, I thought you were going to talk. I was
I
waiting.
can. I was being gracious. I know that sometimes others need, a little more alchemy, right? To think of, how do I think about this? How do I feel about this? How do I recognize this in myself? And it reminds me, there's a beautiful, for anyone that has Spotify, there's a beautiful album on there, Nature by Ram Dass. And so it's really just his wisdom, and then some very clever people have put it to musical tracks. And it's he's a mindful guru. I'm sure most of you have heard of him, Ram Dass. And he speaks a lot about his pain and his journey and how he loves his pain. And that is the place, in order for him to be able to, I guess, stay in his heart space, he has had to accept his pain. And I think that is such a beautiful thing when we all know that the acceptance, whilst the first pillar of mindfulness, of course, is that awareness. If we can then not accept it, we cannot transform it, we cannot shift from it, change it, we can't, we cannot do very much with it until we can accept that it is what it is, even if it's not what we want or wishing it to be. That reframe of, why is this happening for me, as opposed to why is this happening to me, is very, very powerful. Yeah,
Great lesson. Alex?
I'm like Sam too. I can talk to it, believe me. Well, first of all, I just want to know, thank you, Dr. James, for sharing this, your experience now with us. I'm still just a human being. I'm trying to work on my own imperfections, but it's something that because I want to give and help people, something that I need to learn, because I know it's easy in some other situations that just when people are not ill, or they, they're not going through a really traumatic situations, and you just say, oh yeah, be grateful for, so I need to learn how to psychologically, mentally, spiritually understand their position and be able to give whatever I can give, so they can have their mind shift, right? I'm not there yet. I'm trying, but what I do say, just personally, just being the imperfect human being that I am, working on my imperfections to, reach the next level. That a lot of that, what Bill described is just you're doing for your partner, for your family, for your spouse, in feeling what, I'm not getting anything back. I'm not getting, just I'm doing the laundry, I'm doing this, and then I realized that personally, my personal experience, maybe a month or two ago, that just I was in a state of complaining. I was in a state of just be unhappy because I felt like I was giving more than receiving. And then I communicate, Sam mentioned, I communicated with my wife, the things that was happening, that I felt was wrong, and then at that point, I felt I need to let this thing go, and I realized that one that would actually help me make the shift was just one time, just doing, in this whole pandemic era, just we just spending more time with the family, which is I'm grateful for, but sometimes it's a lot, right? Because you need your space to grow, you need your space to learn, you need your space to recharge, right? And then try to juggle all those things between the responsibilities. I remember like one of my kids just coming into my office, and I was busy trying to get something done. I said, Dad. I said, no, I can't right now. I just I'm busy. Can I talk to you in a second? I said, oh, Dad, I just want to say that I love you. And that hit me like, what? Just like, even though we know this whole fast-paced, life that we're living right now, I felt at that moment, just like, what I'm giving to them, they are seeing it, they are receiving, they are feeling it, right? So I need to start giving without expecting. And I tell you that just when I actually start doing that, my life changed. It's not perfect, of course, but just like but I start not only feeling much better, but I felt that just now I'm not complaining every day or unhappy or grumpy, whatever. And my wife was more appreciative to what I was doing. And then we get those little, serendipity moments that just like, when you're cooking, you're busy, and then again, someone says, oh, your food is delicious, or thank you for getting my sweater ready for me this morning, and I found out it's more important for me to be giving to them than expecting them to give it to me. In reality, by me giving, I'm getting back at some way, shape, or form. And it's still like I'm still, sometimes like, I'm doing more laundry than you, but just like it's a work in progress. But it did I felt the shift, and just like that my wife now I feel like she's coming closer to me. She makes some coffee to me sometimes but I know that she, by communicating with her, she said, listen, I'm busy, I was doing something, and thank you so much for being understanding and for being there for me what I needed the most now. So sometimes we are like expecting so much from that person, but by you giving to them, they're appreciative, and they'll give back to you some way or another. So I'll thank you guys for
Thank you for sharing that. I think it goes into that whole phrase is what you practice grows stronger. And if you practice that sense of lack or that sense of unfulfillment, then that's going to get bigger in your life. If you practice that sense that you're doing more than everybody else, and you're giving and not getting anything back, of course that's going to get bigger in your life, because that's what you're practicing. So you come back into that place, and what you're practicing now is the fulfillment that comes from giving. And that moment when your son comes in and says, I love you, doesn't that refill your cup more than doing any laundry or doing anything, right? And seeing those opportunities instead of being in that space of, what's wrong with my family? Oh,
exactly.
my family, and they love me, right?
Right.
Bill, it reminds me of, I don't know if anybody here has seen the English movie called About Time. I don't know if anyone's seen it. It's by the same directors who did Love Actually and Notting Hill. Without spoiling it for you, the story, without telling you the story, is about time travel, and how this person realizes that they can time travel. They can only go backwards, and they can only go backwards for a certain amount of time. And once they discovered this, there's obviously the whole movie takes off about the things that they do. But at the end of the movie, it talks about, what they've learned about it. Well, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. It's my favorite movie. It's actually my kids' favorite movie as well. It's a Wilson family classic. So many great actors in it. But the main lesson is that at the end of each day, he takes a moment and he goes back through, he travels back to that morning, and he does the whole day again, knowing what's going to happen. But he ensures that he smiles at the coffee lady, and he's getting his coffee. He ensures he holds that door open for that person. And he did that for a little while. And then he just decided, do you know what? This is exhausting. Why don't I just try and live every moment? That this is my one opportunity to do this, my one opportunity to make eye contact with you and smile, and act with that. I see you, I see your pain, or I see your sorrow, I see your happiness, I see you struggle, and see ourselves in that way as well. And that we don't necessarily have to have the opportunity, whilst it's there for us all, to go back in time to the power of speech to say, I could have done better. it's a beautiful movie. I think it would be a wonderful example for us to use, Bill, about time. I
I'll
think
check
it's on
it out.
Netflix. If you need to buy it, it's certainly worth it. It's as good as Love Actually in Notting Hill. So
Okay.
I post a
unless you
link
don't like,
on the chat. You know, I'm gonna check it out. Yeah.
of
Sweet.
course, if you don't like that kind of, rom-com movie, you will hate it.
Okay. I don't have to watch it now. I know how it ends. Anyway, I'm kidding.
You don't know the main bits, I promise.
Very good. All right, you all. So I appreciate everybody participating.
On that note, it's about time.
Yeah. It's about time to
It's
draw
about
this
that
to an end. So, I don't know what the topic's going to be next week, but I'll come up with something soon because, yeah, we'll keep it going. I love these little Tuesday corners, right? So,
Right.
I appreciate everybody's time and input and energy, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. For those of us in the States, happy Thanksgiving, and I wish you all the best, and I'm very grateful. I don't take you guys for granted. I'm very grateful for all that you give me and share with the community and how we come together and support each other in such amazing ways. So that's my gratitude note for the moment. So I will see you all very soon.